Hello, everyone. I'm Cheryl Carr, your work doctor, and welcome to the Achieve with Dr. C broadcast. My apologies for being 10 minutes late, but we had technical difficulties, in addition to the fact that my hair was doing its own thing again this morning. I love when my hair just decides it doesn't want to cooperate. I've been having gray hair days all week until I had to come on the air. But anyway, I'm so happy to be back with you guys. As you know, last week, so much technical difficulties, I couldn't even get on the air. I was trying to do the show earlier, but due to a 2 week lockout on Facebook, which we don't even want to discuss that because we have so much to talk about today's topic, which is toxic family and how to deal with toxic family, that I don't even want to go into what I dealt with toxic Facebook. But I will. I'll share it with you guys. And I hope everyone is gearing up for a wonderful, peaceful time with family. And I hope the information that I will share with you today will help you when it comes to dealing with toxic family. Now, we all have it. I just want you to know nobody is alone in this. We all have toxic family members, and we all have to deal with it. I mean, it's just something that you've got to learn to deal with. And dealing with toxic family requires a certain amount of behavior corrections for ourselves. And we all know what toxic is, right? Toxic is when, and I'm sorry, I'm pulling up a note and it's not cooperating with me. Toxic is when um, someone it pushes against boundaries. Toxic is when someone completely infects you with their negativity or their inability to have non chaotic, unproblematic communication and relationships with you. Now, I come from a huge family, and my family definitely has its toxic elements. But the one thing I can tell you about my family is we do love and we love hard. And even when we're being our most toxic selves, our dysfunction is we still come around each other. We don't know how to set boundaries, but we're working on it. And I'm noticing when chaos and conflict comes up, even though we still have that behavior of separation, um, for a short period of time, we do come back together and we work through things. And that's been the blessing that I've seen with my family, is that um, when an enemy exposed is an enemy defeated. And when you have toxic barriers to healthy, nurturing relationships, which we're all created for healthy relationships. And if you have to deal with that, when family comes to mind, it's complex. That's the first thing I want to say about dealing with family, especially during this holiday season, especially during a pandemic, especially after lockdown and separation and isolation and all the things that have collectively traumatized us over this last year. It's so hard to come back together. And many of us don't want to. And that's okay too. There's ways of modifying your own behavior so that you can do things that are beneficial for your well being. And no, that shouldn't be your only focus. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to share this topic. And a family matters and family business, and talk about things that might be a little difficult to talk about, but once you do, you expose it, you recognize it for yourself, then you can maybe deploy some of the suggestions I'm going to give you that will help you in your relationships, especially with family, complex family. And I also want to tell you, this is not medical advice. It's not even psychological advice, although I am qualified to do both. I am giving you my opinion. It is a carefully researched, data driven opinion, but I'm not sharing information with you that you should substitute for your own medical, mental, and emotional practitioner or provider. And also use this as a reference point for your own self coaching. I'm a huge proponent in self coaching because you are an expert in you. So when you get information from me, which is all I try to do in this show, is share information with you that you can walk down a road to self coaching yourself, seeking help if you need to. Help seeking is also something I encourage when you get this information. And then make sure, if you're not following me at Dr. Cheryl on Facebook, please go do that right now. That way you'll get advanced notification when I'm on the air. And then also make sure, if you're not following me or subscribe to my YouTube channel, that you go and do that today too, especially because I started a new work contract. So things are changing. I'm updating this show, this broadcast. I may even be in the studio soon. So there's lots going on, and I want you to have advanced notification for when I'm on the air and be in the know of what's going on with Dr. Cheryl Carr, LLC, and what's going on with the Achieve with Dr. C Foundation. So let's get into it. Let's talk about this toxic family. Now, when we talk about family, it can bring up an array of complex emotions. And probably for those of you headed home for Thanksgiving, you're going through some complex emotions. This is an emotional time for a lot of us. For those of us that are away from our families, and we may be with our significant others away from our family, this is the time that we then throw ourselves back in the mix. And there is something I try to tell my family and friends, that when you live, especially in 2020, when you live alone or when you live in isolation or when you live separated from your family, even with your significant other, when you go back into that family environment, remember the show I did about regression of behaviors? That can happen. That can happen so easily. And if you didn't watch that show, I want you to go back and watch the episode I did. I think it was the 1st of November. No, it wasn't, because the I was locked out of Facebook. But I think it's on YouTube. You'll have to go to YouTube to watch that, where I talk about what regression is and why we do that when we go back home. We default back to what our defense mechanisms are, or our roles that we played in our family. So hopefully, when those complex emotions about being around family come up, they're mostly positive. But I venture to tell you that no, there's going to be a mix of both, or you may be mostly positive, or you may be mostly negative. Normal. If you're dreading going home because you don't want to see certain people, those toxic people I'm talking about that are members of your family, it's perfectly understandable. But what I'm trying to coach you, help you self coach yourself to, is so you set appropriate boundaries and you know what's right for you, so that before you go back into this chaotic, upended, non peaceful, toxic behavior environment with your family, you're sure of what you want and how you want to show up. And you also have some tips and tools how to handle those toxic family members. Those are the toxic family members who do not respect boundaries. Matter of fact, they may or may not know your boundaries, but they will choose to push against them. They will choose to ask questions like, why aren't you married yet? Or, what did you bring to cook? We know you don't cook. Or they'll say things like, have you gained weight? or girl, you getting big. All those things that people intentionally do just to start drama. Or you drinking again? When did you quit smoking? Where is so and so? Just getting in your business for no reason. And we all have them. And we all know which one's going to do it. Every now and again, somebody in my family will cut left and do something that I didn't anticipate. But toxic and difficult family relationships can be difficult and hard to get out of. And I'll tell you why. When I taught about regression, I taught you that it is a self defense mechanism to regress and to become a child again, especially with our family and especially with our parents, because it's a default. It's what feels comfortable to you, even if it's dysfunctional, even if it's not right for you. It's what feels right for you inside. And the emotional distress to change that, most of us will just, that's just how they are. Even though it hurts your feelings, disturbs your peace, makes you feel bad, um, gives them a license to issue out abuse. So it can be hard to deal with. So when you got toxic family relationships, I want you to think back to your childhood right now. You didn't know your family was toxic. You didn't know those behaviors were improper and pushed boundaries or broke boundaries. You didn't know the way your feelings showed up, like shame and guilt and anger and anything but love and happiness showed up. You didn't know that you could feel those things, work through them, and come to a positive outcome because you may not have known these tools that we're going to talk about. Also, in family units, there are unrealistic expectations, especially during the holidays, because that's when we want the Norman Rockwell picture gathered around the table, the perfect turkey cooked perfectly, food, everything around the table's perfect. Everybody's happy to be there. Everybody's on time, number one. And then we sit down and we have this legendary meal. And then everybody gets up and still has love, plays music around the piano. I mean, all those images we get with the Christmas movies we love. That ain't real life. Because many times around that table is angry people who haven't spoken to each other, or the meal wasn't prepared right, or so there's a number of things that can go wrong that will set off toxic environmental behavior. And here are the suggestions to deal with some of those things, okay? Because I want you to know, if you're in a feeling, if you go into your family environment and you feel controlled, or you feel powerless, or you feel offended, which many of us are offended with society and what's going on in the world, so we're even more touchy with our family. But if you're feeling controlled, like toxic family members try to control major aspects of your life, or they want to know information that it isn't their business to know. And they will push against you to get you to give them the information they can then use to actually abuse you, or make you feel bad, or make you feel less than, or any of those things. And when I say make you, I want to be very careful to let you know nobody can make you feel anything. But behaviors that others have will push you to a feeling that isn't what you want. But you still have the choice. You get to choose how you will feel and how you will be treated and what you will accept or not. And that is so hard to tell you to do in a family environment, but that goes to feeling controlled. And you can also not feel loved or feel like people have compassion for your situation or respect. That's toxic. Now, it's normal to have occasional disagreements. It's normal to not like someone's lifestyle, behaviors. You have a preference. What's abnormal or what's toxic is when you don't realize they're not you. And you feel like it's your job to try and make them do what you want them to do. That's control. That's not respecting someone. That is toxic. So, if you come in and they mock and belittle your choices, if you come into your family environment and they attack your vulnerable points, like for those of us that may have gained weight, or those of us that went through separation, divorce, loss of a loved one, yeah, people still get inappropriate questions with that. Um, if they do things that chip away at your self esteem, like, why are you wearing that dress? Oh, ooh, that's short. Or whatever. I could go through the list, but I don't want to give a lot of airtime to the toxic behaviors so that you're not on guard and looking for that and then identifying it like that. But let's talk about, especially if your family environment has um, inappropriate name calling, um, any type of physical abuse, like putting their hands on you. Grown people should keep their hands to themselves, and grown people that are not parents should keep their hands off your kids. So, those are different levels, but dysfunction that's chronic and persistent, dysfunction that is abusive or makes you feel less than, mocks you, belittles you, makes you feel as if you aren't respected and that you can't even say anything without it being a bunch of drama. That's toxic. So, here's how to respond to it. This is the part I just wanted to do the introduction so you could recognize, one, we all have it. Two, no, we don't have to stand for it. And three, there are things you can do because it's your choice. You get to set your boundaries. You get to tell people what's acceptable for you or not. And no, I'm not asking you to be selfish. I'm asking you to be self compassionate because you know what makes you feel good. You know, you're an expert in you. So let's talk about how you respond to toxic family members that you might be seeing in just a couple of days. Okay? The first thing, I want you to self coach yourself into deciding, what do you really want? Let's keep some realistic expectations. But when you go into this family environment, what do you really want? Do you know? Because if you don't know, you'll go in and you'll accept whatever happens. And then you'll spend your time going, I should have, or wish I had, or allow for yourself to suffer abuse. And that's not acceptable at any time. So I would place limits around interaction with the family that is toxic and the behaviors that violate your boundaries, don't make you feel good, make you feel disrespected, make you feel belittled, make you feel like your choices in life are beneath them or not right when they're the choices for you. So, one of the tools you can do is limit the time. I was the worst at this when it came to overstaying my welcome when I was in an environment I was uncomfortable with. I've now learned to get my hat and go. And I do it in a way that I try to be respectful of other people, but I am good at identifying this isn't an atmosphere I'm comfortable with. And I don't feel good here. So I skedaddle. But that's one way that you can um, set your own limits for what you want and then stay within those boundaries that you agree with yourself. Once you feel belittled, once you feel disrespected, that you limit your time there. You can do it in a respectful way or not. I don't and sometimes I would just leave. I don't owe anybody any explanations. And sometimes you can give so much information that people will talk you out or make you feel bad about the fact you're uncomfortable dealing with their abuse. And you get in this whole drawn out drama about it that you don't need. So that's one tool you can respond to toxic family environments. Limit your time, decide what you want, then limit your time interacting with it. You get to choose. Practice detachment. Now, detachment is a skill we teach in a psychology for behaviors when you can't get away from it. Like work, you got to go work. Um, Sometimes with family members, you may have loved ones that have aged, may be cantankerous. And so you've got to go spend time with them and you can't change them, but you need to be able to be around them and not let it bother you, which is difficult. This is the most difficult tool to try and exercise. But when you can't limit the time you spend with them, you cannot let them pull you into the drama. And you practice detaching from it. Like, don't participate in the messy situations and gossip. Don't avoid topics that bring on strong emotions. Also, with people you live with, yes. Yes. Sometimes you have to detach from them. You're absolutely right, Shanita. Um, Keeping all of your conversation and comments light and encouraging and positive. That's very important to do. And then the final tool is learn how to cut conversations off. I don't like gossip. I don't like sitting around talking about people's business. One, I'm too busy. I don't have time to put people's business in my real estate in my head. But if you see the family conversations or the toxic family member trying to drag everybody there, you can decide not to participate. You don't even have to make an announcement. You can just make a move. And that move is to just get away from it or be silent. If they ask you a question, you can hunch your shoulders or do some type of deflecting. But one thing you don't have to do is you don't have to say a word. Silence speaks loudly. And yeah, they'll probably take it offensively, but so what? They're being offensive. Okay. This feels difficult at first to detach. And it's like Shanita said, with people you live with, detaching because you can't get away from them. And you may live with toxic people, and their toxicity may rise to whole new levels during the holidays. Do you want to know why? Because they have an audience now. Now they have captured victims, people who are at their beck and call and mercy with their toxic behavior unless they learn these tools how to respond to it. So, detachment, limiting the time, deciding what you want. Now, learn when to say no. And no is a complete sentence, it requires no follow up. And I've learned to say no, even when it's the most uncomfortable for me. I've learned to just say no and shut up. I don't owe you any further explanation. No, not for me, not at this time. No, that's another tool to respond to toxic family members. And don't follow it up. Learn to practice saying, yes, amen, sister. Learn to say no without requiring follow up because no is a complete sentence. And sometimes when we add to it, that's when we make our no a yes or a yes, but instead of a firm no. I say no, not at this time, not working for me. That's not going to work for me. That's a no. So learn to say no. And remember when I started this discussion, I told you guys that this requires changing your own behaviors. And the second tool is to realize you can't change other people. So don't try. This tool, this toolkit I'm giving you, these behaviors I'm giving you, they're for you. Because in a circle of control, you can only control yourself and you can control your response and you can move your own mouth to say or not to say. You can move your own feet to be present or remove yourself from something. What you can't do is change anyone else. So, in deciding what you want, make sure that does not include, I want so and so to act right, or I want so and so to know not to do that to me. Because then you're getting, oh, you're crossing over into requiring someone else to respond to what you want the way you want them to. Does that make sense? That's how you have to understand you can't change someone. So you can only change yourself. So, final thing, plan your time with your family for what works for you. Now, this is something when I've dealt with people who have gone into family environments after major life event, like we all are due to the pandemic. When I've had to coach and counsel people that have been traumatized, one of the biggest things that has always surprised me, and even with myself, is that we don't plan what we want to involve ourselves in. We don't plan it. We just show up. We let someone else plan. This is what time we're having family dinner. This is where we're coming. We show up with our dish or our drinks or whatever we're bringing, and we don't have a plan in mind for what's going to happen to us while we're in their environment. And if you can do nothing else for yourself, plan the way the meeting needs to go for you. Like I say, I have 3 hours I can spend at the family dinner. What works for me is to be in an environment where when I leave, I feel good about the conversations I've had, about how I treated those I love, about what I ate, because I don't eat everybody's food. Also, that I feel like I left it better than I found it, that I've loved on those I love in a way that we all feel good. This is just how I plan and how I think through my interactions with my family. And I want you to self coach yourself this way this year. You may have done it unconsciously, and some of you may listen to these tools and go, hey, I already do that. I say no. I leave when it's not working for me. If I'm greeted with a, "Ooh, girl, you gain weight," I have a comeback for that. And you may or may not. I've learned to just say, that's not a greeting. Hello, how are you? I'm happy to see you. And then I will say no. I'm not discussing that. My weight's not up for discussion, or I'll say nothing. But I have planned in my head how I want it to go and how I want to interact and what I want the takeaway to be from my time with my family and what works for me to be involved in or not. So, those are the tools that can help you respond to toxic family members, especially during the holidays. When I said, number one, that toxic family member or family members love the holidays. Why? Because they have a captured audience for their abuse. And they're actually planning right now who they're going to offend because they know who they're targeting. Abusers are planners. They do. Those of us that are their victims or those that suffer their toxicity, we're the ones that don't plan. We take it in the face. And I want you to not do that this year because this holiday season is on the tail end of the pandemic. We've all been apart. We've all collectively been traumatized. So it's a little more heightened emotions. So, what I would love for you to do is to decide how you want things to go, what works for you. Make that decision. Two, make sure you understand what makes you feel disrespected, what makes you feel like your boundaries are being broken, what you will and will not involve yourself in. Make sure you understand you can't change them. You can only change how you respond to them. I love to say this: I can't tell you what to do, but I will tell you what you won't do to me. That's all I got because I can't change other people, nor do I want to. Also, learn to what to say no to. No is a complete sentence, it requires no follow up. Don't say yes to something you don't want to do. Learn to say no. And then the best thing that I can give you, the advice is decide and plan for what you will do. Have a plan of action. If it requires, you cut things short because the environment's gotten messy and toxic and doesn't feel good. And for those of you that live with those people, if you have another place in the house you can go to and withdraw and restore your mindset and then come back, try that. Go for a walk. If you where you can go outside, it's not cold. Um, do something to detach. And then, most importantly, please try to leave it better than you found it. Even if they're argumentative, that doesn't mean you have to be. If they're toxic, that doesn't mean you have to be. So, I hope I said something today that will help you with your own self coaching, that will help make the holidays more pleasant and loving and kind for all of us because we all need that right now. We're all collectively traumatized. And this holiday season, I want to love on people I love a little bit differently than I have in the past because I'm so grateful we're still here. And I'm so grateful to have the things we have. We have more than enough, and God is good. That's all I can tell you. So please like, share, and if you're watching the rebroadcast, please make sure you subscribe. Follow me on Dr. Cheryl. Make sure you go to the Achieve with Dr. C YouTube channel and subscribe, like, share, follow, and find me next week. I'm still not sure what time the broadcast. It's just working out this week because it's vacation week for a lot of us. Um, please like, share, and follow. And then I will see you next week. We'll continue to wrap up our family matters, family business, and we'll introduce next month's topic, which I won't share now. And then we'll introduce, you'll find out about my challenge for the last 5 of 2021. The last 5 days of the year, I like to issue a challenge. And so you'll be able to sign up for and attend. And then I'm putting together a very beautiful journal for the workshop to help us start off 2022 our best selves. Okay? Have a great day. I'm Cheryl Carr, your work doctor, and this is the Achieve with Dr. C broadcast. Bye.